Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in Guyana over the past week or so. And as is the norm, we always have a packed agenda of issues to discuss. I want to begin by welcoming our viewers who are joining us on television from West Coast Berbice, region number 5. Welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News. And as I go across the Berbice River to the east bank of the Berbice River, New Amsterdam, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Region 6, Kanji, along the Quarantine Coast, all of you who are joining me live on television from the county of Berbice, in particular region number 6, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And last but not least, to the thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live right across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, and across Asia and even further afield. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Please ensure that you put your questions in the comment section, put your queries in the comment section so that I can at least try to address them, try to answer your questions so that we can have an interactive session as possible. I want to also remind you to share this live program. Share this program, press that share button on your phone so that you and your friends and followers can join us in tonight's discussion. Please press that share button on your phone so that we have the widest possible audience. And I see many of you, Musa Ramdas, Betty Chris, I see Madbal, Banks Manikchan, Reginald Shiv Mangal, Ram Kumar, Rupnarain, Jasoda Sargent, Wazim Raymond, so many of you, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And please share the live, share the program so that we have the widest possible audience. Remember also to put your questions in the comment section so that I can answer it. And I plan to answer many of the questions that you have been asking me to answer over the past few weeks. I also want to hail out the folks from Port Kaituma, and I see Kishore Etwaru, Pastor Kishore Etwaru. Good evening. Good evening to Keith Parker. Good evening to Orlando. Good evening to Comrade, the Prime Minister's rep, and so many people from Port Kaituma with whom I met yesterday. We had a great time last night, and this morning I returned to Georgetown with my team, and I'm going to speak about that outreach at Port Kaituma. So Port Kaituma guys who are watching me, thank you very much for your hospitality, and we will return again. So that's a good note to start on. As you will recall, during the month of June, President Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali held an outreach in region number 1 and made a number of promises and commitments. Among the promises and commitments made by the President was that the Attorney General will lead an outreach in that region and will also establish a deeds and commercial registry office in that region. You will recall last week we visited Mabaruma and we had a massive outreach at the Regional Democratic Council compound, and we have begun the process of establishing an office at Mabaruma for the Deeds and Commercial Registry Authority in region number 1. Well, that outreach program continued yesterday, this time in the sub-region district of Port Kaituma, and the outreach at Port Kaituma was even bigger and better than the one at Mabaruma. We worked from morning till way into the evening and ensured that we addressed the concerns of all the persons there, and there were hundreds of persons who came there to transact business. I had with me a team from the Legal Affairs Ministry. I had also a team from the Deeds and Commercial Registry Authority. I had a team from the Public Trustee. And I had the services that are already resident in the region, the relevant officers were present. These included the Lands and Surveys Commission officer, the General Registrar officer, and the GCOM officer also participated in the outreach. The Prime Minister's representative, Comrade Lambert, was there. The NDC chairman, Mr. Comrade Keith Parker, was there, and activists of the People's Progressive Party were also there. So it was a government as well as a party outreach, and the response was resounding, and it was truly a success. From the statistics that I've received from the relevant officers who were present, 107 new businesses were registered, and each of those persons received their business registration right there. We worked with computers and printers. We had access to the internet, and so we were able to deliver the services. We were able to complete the transactions. So 107 business registrations were done and the certificates issued. 6 existing business registrations were renewed. 6 existing business registrations were renewed. 16 deed polls were done. 16 letters to request name change on birth certificates were done. 60 late registrations were done, and documents uplifted for dozens more to be completed. So several hundred transactions were completed at Port Kaituma yesterday. Once again, I want to thank the people of Port Kaituma, the residents who turned up in their large numbers and who waited patiently while their transactions were done. Sometimes the place was very hot, it was humid, it was not as comfortable as we would have liked it to be, but the persons stood their ground and they waited patiently and with great discipline as their transactions were being completed. Some persons waited there for several hours, and I want to thank them for their patience and their indulgence. I want to thank also the persons in the locality, the NDC officials, the RDC officials, and the several state agencies who participated or assisted us in this exercise. We could not have accomplished the task with such success without their invaluable assistance. So I want to salute them and offer to them our deepest gratitude. And last but not least, to the team that went from Georgetown, from the Deeds and Commercial Registry Authority, from the Ministry of Legal Affairs, and from the Public Trustee Office, I want to thank you for your selfless sacrifice yesterday and late into the evening last night, and then we returned this morning. So it was a great public outreach, and we addressed the concerns of many, many, many persons. And we plan to do this across all the outlying regions of our country, as I reported last week. So why the government doesn't do something about the garbage in Georgetown? But that's a fair question. But please understand that garbage collection in a municipality is the legal responsibility of the municipal council operating in that municipality. In the case of Georgetown, it is the responsibility of the Georgetown City Council. And you must remember that. They collect the rates and taxes of the citizens of Georgetown and those who occupy places in Georgetown where rates are charged. They have a statutory duty to remove from public places undesirable encumbrances, and they have a duty to keep the city clean. Importantly, they are an elected body, elected by the people of Georgetown, and they are controlled by the APNU AFC. The APNU AFC control the City Council of Georgetown. The PNC, since independence, has always been in control of the municipality, of the city of Georgetown. So I want to make that abundantly clear. Notwithstanding, government over the years has been pouring millions and millions of dollars into the city council to bail them out and to pay contractors who collect the garbage but are not being paid by the city council. So please understand those facts. The federal government is not responsible to keep New York clean, New York City clean. That is the responsibility of the city government, the mayor of New York. So we must understand these things. But I want you to understand where the legal duty lies and where the responsibility lies. And because there has been a consistent abdication of responsibility by the City Council of Georgetown, the government has been forced to step in and clean up their mess. And we have been doing that repeatedly over the years. You would recall only recently, central government gave them, I believe, over $100 million to repair the city council building, which is falling apart. They cannot maintain their own building. And that is the reality. Those are the facts. And these are the very people who want to run government. So I am happy that the person has given me the opportunity to highlight this unfortunate reality. And the citizens of Georgetown continue to vote for these people. Granted, there has been a significant increase in votes in favor of the People's Progressive Party Civic at the last local government elections. But the truth is that the PNC, APNU, AFC, whatever you want to call it, they still, well, I don't think they went on a joint ticket. I don't think the AFC contested those elections. The PNC still won. And they are in charge. So, my friend, keep that in mind when you speak about garbage in the city. So, many questions have been asked of me to provide an update on the elections fraud cases. Well, I want to inform you that the trial of those matters is fixed to begin on Monday, July 29th at the Georgetown Magistrates Court before a particular magistrate. So the trials are scheduled to begin on Monday, July 29th before the Georgetown Magistrates Court. And the magistrate has fixed the trial to continue, or the trials to continue, on a day-to-day basis until September the 13th. So we are expected to have about 6 weeks of continuous trial days. So from July the 29th to September the 13th, that magistrate will only be hearing the election fraud cases. So I'm pleased to provide you with that update. You have also asked me for an update on the teachers' union case. Well, you will recall that we filed our notice of appeal, and we are awaiting directions from the Court of Appeal in relation to that notice of appeal. However, we have also filed an application seeking a stay of execution of that aspect of the judge's order that compelled, or rather that restrained, the government from ceasing to collect the union dues and transmitting it to the union. Put another way, the judge ordered the government to continue deducting the union dues from teacher's salary and paying it over to the union. That narrow aspect of the judge's order, we are seeking a stay of execution of. That application will be heard on Wednesday, the 7th day of August, 2024 at 11 a.m. So that application for the stay of execution of that part of the judge's order will be heard at the Court of Appeal on the 7th day of August, 2024 at 11 a.m. The judge also gave directions for an affidavit in answer to our application to be filed by the other side, and if necessary, we are to file a reply to that answer, to that affidavit in answer. Those papers have already been filed. In addition, the judge also gave directions for submissions to be filed. We have filed our submissions because we are the applicant. We are to go first. So we have filed our submissions, and the other side, there are two parties, they are to file theirs. You have the Trade Union Congress who joined the proceedings, and you have the Guyana Teachers Union who were the original applicants in the High Court. So there are two parties now at the Court of Appeal. They are to file their submissions in response to the submissions filed by the Attorney General, and they are to do so on or before the 2nd of August 2024. So that is the update in relation to the teacher's case. I want to move on now to a statement that the AFC has made, as is reported in the press. And the statement is carried in the front page, on the front page of one of the newspapers, enjoying daily circulation in Guyana. And I read the headline. It reads, AFC urges street protests against rising crime, calls on government to spend more to tackle gun violence. Let me say that the government of Guyana is not comfortable with the level of crime and violence in the society. And that is no secret. We have repeatedly accepted that fact, and we are assiduously working to address the situation. You would know of the number of different pieces of legislation that we are passing. But as I have often said, this is not, rather legislation is not the singular remedy that can comprehensively and successfully address this problem. We have to have a multifaceted approach. So we will take to the Parliament shortly a bill that will increase penalties for different categories of offenses. Certainly, traffic offenses will attract higher penalties. We continue to have in Guyana an unacceptable rate of road fatalities. Unacceptable. You know that we have been passing a menu of statutory provisions intended to address this matter. We have introduced the offense of motor manslaughter. We have introduced a regime of disqualification. We have introduced a regime, a disqualification of driver's license. We have introduced a regime that addresses drunken driving in a comprehensive way. We have introduced a regime of statutory provisions to address the question of selling of intoxicating liquor to drivers and persons suspected to be drivers. Only at the last sitting of the Parliament, we have introduced a camera system by way of legislation, so that cameras are going to be located along strategic points of our major roadways and will video record transactions relating to speeding and failure to wear seat belts. We spoke about that in the Parliament at length. We are coming with, as I said, another slew of amendments to address penalties under the Road Traffic Act. Of course, we need to do public awareness in terms of how to use our roads. Clearly, we are not using our roadways in a careful and cautious manner. And that is causing the high incidence of road accidents and indeed the carnage that we are witnessing across the country. Similarly, in relation to offenses involving violence, robbery, breaking and entering, and burglary, and robbery under arms, just to name a few, are offenses that their penalty provisions are being reviewed with a view of increasing those penalties. So that's one way of dealing with the issue. We are constantly training our police officers to make them better qualified and better suited to deal with crime and criminality in the country. More forensic approaches to investigations are being pursued. We have equipped our forensic laboratory with a skill set of highly qualified personnel that we have recruited from overseas. We have now modern equipment and we are acquiring more to equip the lab as we move into forensic examination. We are increasing the capabilities of SOCU, CANU, the GRA, and the Guyana Police Force in law enforcement. And I can go on, but the subject minister will speak more elaborately on this. In terms of the law, the Attorney General Chambers continues to partner with the Guyana Police Force in doing educational interventions with a view of educating our policemen and women on issues of the law that we feel they should be more familiar with. The criminal justice system is undergoing a transformation at every level. We just had an addition of a dozen magistrates. We are building magistrates' courts across the country of a different type. Modern structures, modern facilities with residences for the magistrates within the court so that magistrates can sit for long hours and longer hours. And we are locating these courts in areas where we never had courts before. I have just outlined an overview of what we are doing to tackle crime, criminality, and violence in our country. We are passing soon a family violence bill. It's already laid in the National Assembly, a most modern piece of legislation to deal with familial violence. Because sometimes that's where most of the violence takes place. In the unit of the family or in a family scenario. When we look, and you can look at the statistics yourself, compare the statistics of violent, serious crimes now to when the APNU AFC was in government. And you will see that there is a decline. And there has been a decline every single year if you compare them year by year. So the AFC is quite hypocritical and duplicitous to speak about crime and violence in the country. You vividly remember that Ramjatan in the parliament said that he's importing horses and dogs to fight crime in the country. Well, I haven't seen one horse, neither did I see a dog. That was his answer, that they will bring horses and dogs to fight crime. Today, they are out of government, and look at what their solution is. Look at what their recommendation is. Street protests. Street protests. Street protests in Guyana has a particular history. Street protests lead to crime and more violence. And that is what the AFC is calling for. You would recall vividly Nigel Hughes issuing an ultimatum to President Donald Ramotar that if he doesn't do a particular act within 48 hours, he, Nigel Hughes, will cause mayhem in the country. Of course, President Ramotar refused the demand and ignored Nigel Hughes. And what happened? He called out the people at Agricola. They blocked the road, the main artery on the east bank of the Demerara for several hours, and they beat, they molested, and they robbed hundreds of innocent persons commuting along the east bank carriageway. That is all that these people know to do. The PNC is the same thing. Block roads, burn tires, rob, burn people vehicles, beat people on the road. That's their solution. They have done it at West Coast Berbice recently. They have done it innumerable times along the East Coast roadways and other parts of the country. You remember when they marched from Golden Grove all the way to Monrepo and beat and rob people along the way and then rob all the vendors and patrons at the Monrepo market? Those cases are still ongoing. The charges that arose, charges of terrorism that arose out of that incident, are still pending in the magistrates' court along the east coast of the Demerara. So that is what they know to do. That's their solution. Call out people to protests, as if that will ever solve the problem at hand. But that's all that they know. I hear Ramjatan speaking about this report and that report. Whatever report, I don't know that they implemented anything. I know that they caused the prison at Camp Street to be burnt. I know they caused several prisoners to be killed in the fire. I believe they had about 3 fires That's Ramjatan's legacy. That is Ramjatan's legacy. And Nigel Hughes, and he will tell you that it is his right as a lawyer, and that may be so, but the fact is that he has appeared for every major criminal in this country. You can't want to talk about crime and violence and condemn crime and violence when you are appearing for every criminal, every major criminal, every person charged for serious criminal conduct in the country. It may be your right to do so as a defense counsel. And I know the people are presumed to be innocent until they are proven guilty. But that is the conflict of interest that this Nigel Hughes keeps finding himself in. You cannot serve two masters. I will deal in greater length on the oil and gas sector at a later stage. But right here, there's a conflict. You can't serve the victim of crime and serve the perpetrator of the crime at the same time, or the alleged perpetrator. You can't speak about the rise in criminal violence on the one hand and complain about it, and then on the other hand appear for the miscreants when they are charged. That is a classic case of a conflict. And Nigel Hughes is riddled with conflicts. I used to be a criminal lawyer once. But when I entered Parliament, and when I entered the Central Committee of the People's Progressive Party, the General Secretary of the party and I had a conversation, and I felt that I cannot be a lawyer for persons charged with violent crimes and be in the leadership of a party that wants a crime-free society. And I made that decision. It had a financial cost, but it was the morally right thing to do. Mr. Nigel Hughes doesn't want to make that change. He doesn't want to pick the side. Why? Because of the financial interest. Because he will lose financially. Well, my friend, public life and political life is not about money. It's about service. You hear what he says? When he becomes president, then he will do X. You don't operate like that. I didn't wait until I became Attorney General to stop practicing criminal law. From the time I entered the leadership of the People's Progressive Party and I assumed a seat in the National Assembly on behalf of the People's Progressive Party, and I understood their philosophical position on crime and violence, I realized that it violently conflicted with me being in that party, in the leadership, in the parliament, for that party, and at the same time appearing for criminals or persons charged with criminal offenses. Let me rephrase that. Wherever I say criminals, I mean a person charged with criminal offense. or persons charged with criminal offenses, because there is a presumption of innocence. That is a decent thing to do. That is how you know exemplary leadership. And I am not a leader. I was never the leader of a political party or the leader or the general secretary of the People's Progressive Party. I was simply in the Central Committee. I was not, at that time, not even in the Executive Committee. But there was a conflict. Here you have the AFC protesting against crime and want people to protest against crime. And their leader is the leading criminal, is one of the lawyers who appear for persons charged with the most serious of violent crimes. So, my friends, these are the things that you have to bear in mind. And I will be talking more and more about these conflicts. They're all over the place. In particular, when it comes to the Alliance for Change. And they want to be the change. Better must come. Better must come. You can't appear for persons charged with serious criminal offense and be offended by the crime rate. %50 of those who are charged are repeated offenders. Check the statistics. You cannot eat your cake and have it. You cannot blow whistle and suck cane at the same time. And I'm not ready yet to deal with the conflict of interest in the Exxon matter. I'll deal with that in a program by itself. I'll deal with that in a program by itself. And there are many more conflicts that I'm going to highlight to you to show you that better will not come with the AFC. And of course, neither will better come with APNU. I just give you one, that's just the tip of the iceberg, this issue of crime. And we are going to get into all the gory details about the Lusignan massacre and the foreman of the jury who was a client of Mr. Hughes for several years. We are going to deal with the gas station, the removal of the tape at Buxton gas station before the arrival of the police. When Brian Hamilton was murdered. And there are many, many more things to talk about. And we are going to talk about it. Don't worry. So I am looking at your comments. Please, I don't want racism to be spewed on my page. I'm not going to tolerate that. Racism is evil. And I will not encourage or tolerate racist remarks on my page. Racists have no place in the multiracial Guyana that is the Guyana of and for the future. So if you are going to publish racist remarks, please don't do that on my page. So I hope that you are following the disclosures that are emanating from the Public Accounts Committee. Sometimes we get carried away by what Melly Mel is posting and what Nigel Hughes is posting, and we take our eyes off the ball. I don't know whether those things are true, what they are posting, and whatever is worthy of answering, our government has been answering. So the issue about the airstrip, Bishop Edghill spoke at length about it and pointed out that yes, there were deficiencies, there were sloppy work done by the contractor, and it is within the liability period, and the contractor is fixing them. You see, we are executing thousands of contracts at the same time at the level of the state, at the level of central government, thousands at the same time. So let us say we have 10,000 contracts going on in the various sectors, housing, mining, in the country. You're only here, but you have 9,950 are going well. So you're not hearing about that. But there is a 500 that you're hearing about all the time where there are problems. Now if you have 500 contracts with problems in a total of 10,000, are we not doing remarkably well? And they can't even point to 500. There are a couple of contracts that, and we are terminating. We have already levied over $3 billion in liquidated damages against defaulting contractors for this year alone. $3 billion in liquidated damages we have levied against delinquent contractors. We have terminated dozens of contracts already. And every day we are reviewing contractual performance or the performance of contractors on the various contracts at the state level and at the central government level. We are doing that continuously. Notice are being served continuously. Everything can happen in a day. These are legal processes. You can't simply terminate a man's contract. If the contract requires notice to be given and time to be given for the contractor to correct the defect, there are legal processes. We run a legal and a lawful government. We don't run a cowboy operation. But it is easy, very simple, to be on the outside and criticize. We are going to bring back all the scandals that you are familiar with, which you may forget, that happened under them. Why Nigel Hughes doesn't post about Durban Park? Why he doesn't post about the $265 million that Patterson spent on a feasibility study for the Harbour Bridge that he handed to a French contractor without even cabinet's approval, without their own cabinet approval? Why Nigel use that? What is his view on the drug bond that they pay $12 million per month to rent a house in Charlestown to store drugs? 12 million Guyana dollars per month. 60,000 US as a wooden house to store drugs. And when we went there to visit, all it had was lubricants and condoms. Why Nigel Hughes doesn't speak about Walter Lawrence walking into the public hospital and direct the hospital to purchase $670 million worth of drugs from a particular company without any resort to public procurement? Why Nigel Hughes doesn't speak about Patterson buying the motion scale from an AFC consultant in Jamaica? And the contract says that they must pay 50% as a deposit and pay 50% when the scale arrives. Patterson paid 100% and the scale never came. These are all documented instances of wide-ranging corruption. So don't bother with them 2 tidbits Facebook post. We will deal with all of those. And they will have to answer for all of those. You can't live in glass house and want to throw stone. And many, many other things are going to come out. Many, you will learn a lot when we start to disclose. So in the Public Accounts Committee now, you see the front pages of the newspapers today, $133.9 million, $134 million at RDC, region number 1, unaccounted for. Checks written, but no paper trail. No paper trail. The same thing had happened at Region 5 with that REO, Morrison. Millions. Charges are going to be filed. These files will have to go to the Special Organized Crime Unit. These are financial crimes. And they have charges, they are going to be investigated. These are not going to be left on the public record like this. So we have a very, very interesting, I see RDC 7, some 2.3 million in overpayments made to contractors. And this is being discovered. Why you think they want the Public Accounts Committee to sit and to every Monday and to hurry to proceed with haste? That's what they want, because they don't want these finer details to be disclosed. They want to get to 2020 when we are in the government. We will get there. We will get to 2020 at the appropriate time, but we have to deal with the years, year after year. That is how the scrutiny must be done. That is the purpose of the Public Accounts Committee. But they want to rush through the years that they were in government. We will not rush it through. The members of that committee will take their time so that we can unearth all these financial irregularities and frauds that took place, and acts of blatant and flagrant corruption. It's a time-consuming exercise, but it will happen, and we will not proceed on these matters with haste. They will be done with expediency, but at the same time, caution will be exercised, circumspection will be exercised, and it will be done with due diligence to ensure that these financial irregularities, frauds, illegalities, and scandals are discovered, are revealed, are disclosed publicly, and will be investigated. So let me see what comments you have or questions you have. I see one viewer likes my my reference to eat cane and whistle. Thank you, Ramona. Somebody said, stepping out of the horde by Silal Prasad. I ask you, read that book. Read Silal Prasad's book, and in particular, you will see the hand of authoritarianism throughout the book. In 1985, Silal Prasad was a trainee in the Guyana Police Force, and he was camping out at Ivleri at the training school when the 1985 elections came. And he was escorted to the ballot box and instructed to vote for the PNC, for the palm tree, by a superior officer. And he had to show the officer that he voted for the palm tree. That is in the book that Silal Prasad wrote. Today, we have democracy and freedom. Ask any policeman, if they were ever asked or once yet forced to vote for the People's Progressive Party. Never. And it will never happen. That is what freedom and democracy is. And you can't buy that. You can't put a monetary value on freedom, neither can you put a monetary value on democracy. These are inalienable rights that every human being is born with. So we have exceeded our program time. I want to thank you very much for being part of the program. Next week, I will not be here. I will be in Trinidad at the Caribbean Court of Justice, where I'll be appearing in the parliamentary secretary's case. Remember that case? Where they file a challenge against two parliamentary secretary appointed by the People's Progressive Party, Vikash Ramkisoon and Sarah Brown. We are now at the Caribbean Court of Justice, and I will be appearing in that court next week, Tuesday, I think. Yes, so I'll be traveling back, I believe. No, yes, I'll be traveling back Tuesday night from Trinidad. The case is during the day, Tuesday, so I will be in that court. I'll be in that country, so I'll see you the following week. Thank you. Take care and enjoy the rest of your evening and, of course, the rest of the week. Thank you.